we talk a little bit more about the wages and salaries. I have a very, very important guest with me that will be sitting with me in just a few moments to talk a little bit more about what government is doing in terms of the wages and salaries, in terms of improving the lives of Guyanese. And that person that is with me is none other than the Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh. Dr. Singh, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Shakwan. It's a great pleasure to be here again.
Indeed, this is the first time we're here on Guyana Today this morning.
That's right.
And we were talking about the salary increase, and the young people, for some reason, refer to this as the SAP. That is what we call it as young people. But we want to talk a little bit about this salary increase. What exactly does this mean now for the enhancement and development of the public sector and for Guyanese?
Sure. So, one of the things that we, and by we here I refer, of course, to this People's Progressive Party civic government headed by President Ali. One of the things that we committed to do, even before we came into office, and since we came into office, was to continuously seek to improve the circumstances of all of the people of Guyana. Mm-hmm. That, of course, would include the terms and conditions of employment, the other benefits and experiences that people enjoy in their day-to-day existence, the opportunities that are available to them for personal upliftment, and overall to improve people's quality of life. That's something that we said this is a commitment that we're giving to all of the people of Guyana. And President Ali and his government, we've set about doing this from the very first day, trying to create opportunities, trying to improve people's lives, trying to improve people's disposable incomes, and we've done that through multiple channels, and deploying multiple policies and measures over the 2 years that we've been in office. And so this latest announcement by President Ali yesterday represents an extremely important announcement, but yet another installment, if I might describe it as such, in the government's continued efforts to improve disposable incomes and to improve persons' quality of life. You would have heard, of course, that the President announced an 8% across-the-board increase to all public servants and government workers, including, of course, members of the discipline services, teachers, etc., and, of course, very importantly, government pensioners as well. Bear in mind that this 8% comes on top of a 7% that was given in 2021. So if you took the 7% in 2021 plus the 8 in 2022, you have over those 2 years a 15% increase. But you also have, of course, a number of other measures, which I'd be happy to speak about, which were aimed at improving disposable incomes in families across Guyana. And then there was, of course, a very important aspect to the President's announcement yesterday, and that is the announcement that he made in relation to a number of specific categories of public sector employees. He mentioned members of the police force, the prison service, the fire service, nurses and doctors in the public healthcare system, etc. And that was also a very important aspect of the announcement, and of course the President said that more is going to be said about this next week.
Yeah, indeed. And so I am happy that you touched on that a little bit. We're excited to see what is going to happen in that regard. But tell us, Minister Singh, what more can public servants and Guyanese in general expect from government in terms of improving the lives of Guyanese? I know many people have been saying, oh, well, so now the fact that we have oil money, we have so much more to do. But tell us, what more can we expect from government?
Sure. Well, first of all, let me say that even before we come to the more, I think it's important that we, situate this increase in context.
Yeah.
The increase is granted, as a very deliberate intervention aimed at improving, the disposable incomes of working families, and in particular, working public sector families working in government, and that in itself is, of course, a very significant intervention, and it's an intervention that should is worthy of highlight and emphasis. But in addition to that, there are many other aspects to the working conditions of our employees in the public sector that are very important. You know, if I can look back before I look ahead, you know, if you look back at the several interventions that we've implemented since we came into office, including things like restoring the end-of-year bonus to the joint services, which was a very important benefit that was provided, that had been taken away during the 5 years that we were in office, and that we restored when we came back into office. If you take, for example, the cash grant to school-going children, that too is a very significant benefit that we had been providing when we were previously in office, that had been taken away when we were out of office, and that we've restored since we've come back into office, and that we have increased since coming back into office. And each one of those is, you know, very significant. And I want to make this point that every single one of these interventions is significant, not only in terms of what it means for the immediate beneficiary themselves, but also for what it means in terms of the multiplier effects that it will generate in the economy. So, you know, one of those interventions, let's take, for example, the 1 month bonus to the joint services, which we reintroduced. You know, that places in the hands of the men and women in uniform in excess of $1 billion Guyana dollars of additional disposable income. Where does that money go? It doesn't vanish into thin air. You know, the men and women in uniform and their families, having received this 1 month bonus, then go and spend that in the shops, in the markets, in the service providers. You know, so it generates more business. And, you know, they will shop in the markets, they will shop in the supermarkets, they will shop in the stores, and the service providers. And those people will in turn, you know, multiply that over into the economy multiple times over. You know, if you look at the payment of the cash grant to children, that's, you know, at 2022 levels, that's $6 billion of additional disposable income being put in the hands of parents of school-going children. That's $6 billion that will get multiplied over many times in the economy. Yeah, the same could literally be said about anything. I mean, if you take it all, you know, old age pensions, we've increased old age pensions from by about 40%, from 20,500 to 28,000. That itself, you know, has, you know, literally generated, you know, multiple rounds of positive spillover effects into the economy. So that's looking back, and now, of course, looking forward. You know, if the history is a predictor of what is yet to come, then, you know, we're going to continue to be doing this. We're going to continue to not only be, you know, consistently raising incomes for public sector employees, but also, you know, addressing all of the other things that matter to people too. Like, for example, you know, the taxes, we implemented a number of measures to reduce taxes. But then, you know, one has to take a holistic view of well-being, economic well-being at an individual or household level. And there are a lot of things that, you know, sometimes we don't, you know, when we have these discussions about well-being and household well-being, there are a lot of discussions that sometimes we don't, you know, there are a lot of dimensions that sometimes we don't factor into the discussion. I mean, if you take, for example, things, the ability and the capacity for young households to become homeowners, you know, that's very central to well-being. You know, for a young Guyanese family or a young Guyanese professional to be able to apply for a house lot and get a house lot, or get a young professional home, or get a starter home, or get a plot of land that they can then go to the bank and take a loan to build a home and become a homeowner of their own. You know, those are not, and you know, as you know, we have ramped up the housing program dramatically. We've said we're going to be distributing 50,000 new house lots in 5 years. We've already gone, you know, way past 10,000 already. And, you know, my colleagues in the cabinet, Ministers Crowell and Rodriguez, are, you know, pushing ahead very aggressively with this. You know, literally every week you see them having activities in several parts of the country, whether it's Essequibo, Berbice, Demerara, Linden, you know, wherever. You know, in the hinterland region 9, the president announced recently a special housing program there. And so there are this government takes a very comprehensive view of household and individual well-being, and we, unlike our predecessors in office who, didn't seem to think that home ownership was important, there was virtually no housing program, there was no job creation. I mean, we're pushing aggressively with the job creation agenda. We've in every sector, we passed the local content legislation, which creates an opportunity for Guyanese companies to do business and for Guyanese nationals to get jobs. We're pushing ahead aggressively with not just oil and gas sector jobs, but also things like business process outsourcing jobs as well. We want to get more Guyanese people into the workforce, working, upskilling themselves, earning better incomes. So this is I much prefer to situate, this conversation within the broader policy agenda, the agenda that addresses all dimensions of household and individual well-being in Guyana.
Yeah, Minister Singh, indeed, a lot has been happening, and like you said, will continue to happen as we continue to go along. I want to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to have this brief discussion with me here.
Thank you very much, Shakwan. It was a great pleasure.